Okay, so our little indie is actually a 3D printing thing and more.
It's a bit of everything.
It really is a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And it's Fragged Miniatures, Ben.
Yeah. So Fragged Miniatures, and by extension, Fragged Empire, and everything that surrounds it. So I'm just going to say the Fragged universe.
Fragged. Yes.
Has come out of Wade Dyer's mind. He is a wonderful Australian fellow who years ago built up a role-playing game, which we'll get to later, but has most recently popped up on Patreon to kind of get a little bit more backing for all the different projects that he's working on, all sorts of different things like that. And most recently, a lot of the stuff that's popped up on Patreon has really caught my eye because one of the nice things about the games that Wade designs is that they're very miniatures focused. So even the role-playing game is very miniatures focused. Has a kind of like XCOM feel to it. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about it from kind of like a tactical standpoint. But currently a lot of the kind of iconic characters that have come out of the artwork and the design of Fragged Empire have started to pop up on Patreon. There's also my Minifacturer page as well if you want to go and check that out as well, if you want to buy the miniatures directly from there rather than you getting it through the Patreon, etc. But loads of the characters have started to pop up, and the designs on them are absolutely amazing. There's a real cool sort of like movie, comic booky, almost slightly anime feel to a lot of the design that Wade has here. Because Fragged and the kind of universe that's built up around it is, as they describe it, post-apocalyptic sci-fi role-playing. So something bad obviously happened within the world of Fragged.
Really?
And that universe. Yeah. And then as that kind of, and then this is sort of showcasing all these different factions and characters after that, as the world and the universe starts to sort of find itself again. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the core focus of what you're seeing here in terms of the miniature design, I say, is based on the kind of iconic characters that they've designed for the artwork and stuff, and all the, you know, kind of like cookie cutter characters that they've designed for you to dive in and play around with. But they've got that really cool sci-fi vibe to them. A lot of the inspirations come from the likes of Cowboy Bebop, Firefly, Farscape, and as they said, every one of the Millennium Falcon scenes. So they've really tried to go in and kind of give you that idea of like a ragtag bunch of heroes sort of heading out onto the battlefield and kicking ass and taking names kind of thing. And a lot of the characters that you'll see here are based on their own unique races that they've designed for the game as well, like their own lineages. So you've got things like the Vargati, the Kaltoran, the Legion, the Nephilim, the Palantor, the Remnants, the Tuifar, and the Zoo. All of these are kind of representing the characters here, and they're going to start building them as they go through. What's additionally cool about Fragged is that you'll see some other bits and pieces here that are a little bit different. So obviously you've got the characters and stuff that represent, you know, the heroes that you might play on the tabletop in your role-playing games or your miniatures games. And again, the design's really lovely to these. I love them. But there's also ships and all sorts of things in there as well. There are other projects that Wade is working on that I'll get to soon, but these are really cool because one of the nice things about all the Fragged games is that they all have some sense of home to them, regardless of what you're playing. So the core role-playing game is called Fragged Empire, and in that, your kind of home is your ship, and that's where you kind of focus all of your attention on, and sort of like where you take back all your loot that you claimed on adventures and use it to enhance your ship and sort of make sure that it stays safe from pirates and all that kind of thing. But in addition to that, all the other games that they've done all have that sense of home built into it. So like if you play the fantasy version or the pirate version, you've got a ship that you might want to look after, or you've got a castle that you might want to sort of like take control of and all that kind of thing in those games. We'll come to that in a bit. The purpose for why these miniatures, however, have popped up recently is because Wade is also working, in addition to the role-playing game, on a miniatures game, which is called OnTabletop. So OnTabletop has been designed as a very quick miniatures game, plays out on a very small tabletop. You see the playtest rules here. They only cover like 2 pages, which is wild. And it has some really fascinating mechanics to it. So everything's driven off D6, as you might imagine, for a quick and easy role-playing war game. with sixes being effectively a hit on dice. But you build up a pool of dice as you're, or you take away from a pool of dice as you're sort of diving into combat and shooting things and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where the twist comes in is that the game isn't capped by turns so much. It's capped by activations.
Mm.
So what happens is you activate. So the top dog goes first, followed by the underdog.
Mm.
You both have 20 activations, right? But it goes back and forth between the two of you in kind of like an infinity style. So you react to what each character is doing in turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes back and forth, and you have to make the most of what you can out of 20 activations by scoring objectives or completing scenario rules and that kind of thing. And then the game triggers an end, and then you see who's won. So it's not just about, kind of like, well, I've got 5 turns to do this. If I just wait until turn 3 and then I attack them, then I've won the game. You have to really think about how you're going to sort of like control the momentum and the flow of the game as you're playing it, which I think is really nice. There's also a really cool system, and you can see it in some of the cards and stuff like that, of like where you take like upgrades and things. There's like a flow mechanic to how kind of upgrades work. And then you can spend upgrades in order to get advantages and things as well. So if you don't want to use, for example, the spec up upgrade or whatever, you can use it to sort of like do extra stuff on the tabletop, which is quite nice. There you go. Gain capture advantage for an action rather than using the ability on the upgrade, which I think is a really nice bonus. As I say, it's all kind of been designed in a way that you can play this with all the different characters that you've got from the game, although they've also put in additional rules for you to play as kind of like generic troops and things like that as well. So if you wanted to have it so that your group is going up against the enemy in the role-playing game, but you wanted to use the double tap rules because you wanted to make the combat really quick and fast, you could do that where the GM took control of all the enemies and you played with all your heroes or something like that if you wanted to go down that route. But it's essentially a skirmish game addition to what already exists for the Fragged universe. And I think it's going to be developing over the next couple of months. Might come to crowdfunding potentially in the future, but it's been designed as I say, as like a quick and fun game for you to dive into and start playing. And from the looks of it, I'm quite taken by it. I quite like the theme and the aesthetic of the world. I love the miniatures. They're all these lovely 32 millimeter ones. They're gorgeous. And because it plays on such a small space as well, it's got that kind of like appeal of like coffee table game. Just set it up and start playing, which I love. So it looks very, very nice indeed. Now, that's double tap.
Yes.
There's more.
There's more.
But wait.
Right. Yeah. So
A rambunctious engineer.
double tap is the skirmish game that Wade is designing now. But all of this is based on Fragged Empire, which has been taken up and is published by Modiphius now. So you can get it all over the place. But if you're in the UK and the EU, you can get it here. It's recently had a second edition, as I say. The vibe is a sci-fi game. So you're going to be diving in, building up your crew of misfits, kind of, as we said, think Firefly, think Farscape and all that kind of stuff. Heading off into the galaxy and trying to find adventure and all that kind of thing. The game has a D6 system as well, from the role-playing point of view. And it's been tweaked and changed with the second edition to make it a lot more streamlined. As I said, the combat is a little bit more crunchy, but in essence, the way that you do skill rolls and all that kind of thing has stayed the same. You have you have 3d6 that you roll, and then you add and take away from that depending on your circumstances, as you might imagine when you come to a role-playing game. But there's a really nice thing that you can add into the game, which is kind of like a narrative twist to it. So if you can justify your action and like how you might use your character's bonuses and their experiences, the GM is then encouraged to give you extra pluses to your rolls. And you're kind of looking for, I think it's like between a 12 and a 14 for most of your rolls on 3d6 plus all your modifiers and things. But then that pretty much solves it outright. Kind of do that. Nice and easy. Very narratively focused, which is always good to see. As I say, there's loads of different characters, and lineages, and races and things that you can pick up. And Fragged Empire has that kind of solid sci-fi vibe to it. So it's all about, guns, lasers, spaceships,
Pew, pew, pew.
all that kind of stuff. They've developed like 3 systems, I think, that you can dive into, but they also encourage you to do your own. The twist, however, and you can see it here as we go through these pages, there's more, is that Fragged Empire is just the basis for this. Because in the Fragged Empire world, there was this post-apocalypse that happened, right? Various planets...
You mean apocalypse?
Yes. The apocalypse happened to then create a post-apocalypse. I see what you're doing. I see where I've gone wrong there. If I could just create a post-apocalypse, I suppose that'd be easier. Yeah. But yes, certain worlds within this universe got cut off from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this means that there are supplementary games that have come out alongside this that allow you to play very different vibes and genres, but all based on the same Fragged engine. So if you scroll down a little bit and go to page 2, I think that's a good, no, you can do it there. So Fragged Eternum is a slightly more steampunky, think arcane style universe for you to dive into, which is very cool. And then if you go to page 2,
yes.
You'll see some of the other ones they've done. So if you want to do pirate-based games, you can also dive in and play Fragged Seas. If you want to play a fantasy-based game, you can play Fragged Kingdom. And again, each of these, because they're all on separate worlds within the Fragged universe sphere, the cinematic universe of this game world, effectively, you can dive in and have very different experiences. No, it's not. You can dive in and have very different experiences focused on particular genres, but all based on the same core rules of the game. So, as I say, like, dive in and you want to do like a cool fantasy adventure because you really like the mechanics that they've built up, you could do that. And then there's a focus again on that kind of idea of home and sort of building up a castle and all that kind of thing. But if you wanted to do the pirate version, then you could pick up Fragged Seas. And again, this is that vibe of like, the ship is your home and all that kind of thing. And you'll build that up and go adventuring and all that kind of thing. All again based on the same core mechanics. Now, Fragged Empire had a second edition through Kickstarter recently, as you saw. The Fragged Kingdom game is going to get a second edition through Backer Kit very soon as well. So you can buy the original version, but the more streamlined, up-to-date version is also coming out very, very soon. So you'll be able to pick that up as well. Again, it's got that kind of like techno fantasy vibe where like essentially all these people are aliens and those are like alien creatures, but it's the fantasy thing that kind of slides in there. So it's almost got like a weird, I suppose, like a Guardians of the Galaxy thing going on, which I think is quite cool.
You know what they say, any sufficiently high technology looks identical to magic.
Yes, as Thor once said.
I think Thor borrowed that from a famous science fiction writer.
I think Thor was the philosopher who actually...
Well done, Thor. Not just all about the hair and muscles.
Yes. So yeah, they've got this vast array of different role-playing games for you to dive into. There you go. There's the techno magic thing going on. The thing that really shines to me across all of these is that Wade has this. Wade has this stickler for detail thing going on, where all the artwork and the concept design and the world building is just like off the charts. And it's one of the things that I think drew a lot of people to Fragged when it first came out a couple of years ago. Is just the amount of effort that Wade had put into designing all of these worlds. And so it's nice to see that kind of like back on the fore, and you know, it's been developed and upgraded and sort of changed and updated as we've gone through it. I don't see there being any particular reason why you couldn't start to blend a lot of these as well and like bring in stuff from Fragged Empire into Fragged Kingdom and back and forth, because it all runs off the same mechanics. But I also quite like that they could also exist separate from each other with their own specific rules as well.
Yeah.
I think it's quite nice, but yeah.
But that's, I mean, the fact that it is one universe, similar rule set, you could quite happily have your team of fantasy characters bumbling around, and then someday in the future, when you're playing a sci-fi game, have them land on that planet that nobody's been near and go, this looks hauntingly familiar.
Yeah.
Just have them find a magical portal teleport device and just appear on a friggin' like take your fantasy team and stick them on a cyberpunk
like Red Dwarf
world. Like,
the teleport paddle.
Everything glows.
Yeah. It's fascinating when you look at some of the artwork for the second edition stuff, which I haven't listed here, but it sort of popped up in some of the videos that Wade had done, where he's really done the kind of like wink and a nod to techno magic. So when they're doing like all the scrying for spells and things, they've got like kind of like cool techno magic robotic hands that are like casting sigils that could easily be sort of like, deep net code from the Matrix and all that kind of thing. And a lot of the like heroes' weapons have got like cool badass like magical edges to them, which could just be like laser blades and things. The laser blades.
My favorite type of blade after monofilament.
Yeah, the monofilament blade. So yes, there's loads of stuff that they've developed for this. And just to cap things off as well.
Yes.
So obviously the Patreon is where a lot of the focus is at the moment, and you can go and get all those miniatures, which is kind of like the 3D printing element of this, but it's also an Indie of the Week, as we've kind of delved into here. Wade's not stopping. There's a full website that's being developed where you can also go and check it out right now, where you can build your own characters on it. So you can have that as your kind of like reservoir where you keep all of your repository, sorry, not reservoir, where you keep all of your
reservoirs are repositories for water.
That is very true. Where you can go and make all your characters for all the different games. He's also working on a board game called Fragged Cosmos, which is going to be a cooperative sort of like space exploration game that is also going to be coming probably to like crowdfunding to back it, or if they can find a publisher as well in the near future. And again, the artwork's beautiful and gorgeous for that as well. So lots of really cool things coming in the future for Fragged Empire, Fragged Miniatures, Design Ministries, Fragged Kingdoms, Fragged Eternum, all the Fraggeds. It's, oh my god, there's just so much cool stuff. And you can buy physical miniatures from Modiphius as well.
Presumably they exist as STL somewhere as well. Presumably on my factory, yes. I would imagine.
Yeah. But
fancy.
This is one of those games that I think a lot of people have been like, I kind of like heard of this like 5 years ago, and then I kind of forgot about it. Don't forget about it. Go and check it out. It looks really freaking cool.
I hadn't even heard about it.
Well,
this one passed me by entirely.
Yeah.
And now you need to own all of it?
Maybe. Not the miniatures for an RPG.
Oh, no, but the second edition book, you can just buy that. And or get the miniatures for double tap.
Fancy. Right. Yes. Check it out. Everywhere, apparently. It is everywhere. You can't turn around.
There is something literally for everybody.
Making sure I hadn't crept up on me. But I haven't. I'm okay. All right. Enough of that. Let's take a swish and a look at some more news.